Imagine a world where every event in your life, every unexpected turn, and every obstacle is seen not as a barrier but as an opportunity. A way to embrace life in its entirety, without resistance, without complaints. This is Amor Fati, a fundamental principle of Stoicism that literally translates to love of fate. Amor Fati is one of the most powerful pillars of Stoic philosophy, taught by great figures such as Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, Epictetus, the slave who became a master of wisdom, and Seneca, the advisor to emperors. For the Stoics, it's not just about accepting what happens in life, but about loving every aspect of our destiny. Whether pleasurable or painful, each event is part of a greater whole that contributes to our growth and inner peace. Today, this concept is more relevant than ever. In a world filled with uncertainty, where the unexpected constantly challenges us, Amor Fati offers us a tool for finding serenity. The key is to accept that everything, from small discomforts to major tragedies, has a purpose. It's not enough to resign ourselves. We must embrace each situation with gratitude, convinced that even challenges make us stronger. Marcus Aurelius, one of the main advocates of this idea, firmly believed that the universe operates according to a rational order. Although we may not always see the sense behind every event, the Stoic trusts that everything happens for a reason. For him, fate is not something to be endured with resignation, but something to be welcomed with love. In the next few minutes, we will delve deeply into this concept. We will explore how Amor Fati can be applied in our modern lives, how we can accept the unexpected, and instead of resisting it, find in it a source of inner peace and purpose. Are you ready to discover the power of accepting the unexpected? Let's begin. To understand the power of Amor Fati, we first need to go back in time to the era when this powerful philosophy was born, Stoicism. This philosophical movement emerged in the 3rd century BC in Athens, founded by Zeno of Citium, but it flourished in Rome under the influence of figures like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. It was within this philosophical current that the concept of Amor Fati began to take shape. But what does this principle truly mean, and how did the ancient Stoics apply it in their lives? Epictetus, one of the main proponents of Stoicism, was born a slave in the Roman Empire. Despite living in conditions of extreme hardship, he never allowed himself to be defeated by his fate. He taught that while we cannot control what happens to us, we can control our attitude toward those events. This is where Amor Fati comes into play, to accept and even love every circumstance that life places in our path. The Stoics lived in times of great uncertainty and adversity. Marcus Aurelius, for example, ruled Rome during years of war and plague. Amidst that chaos, he wrote in his Meditations how the true power of humanity lies in the mind, and that the only way to find peace is by accepting and embracing everything life presents us. For Marcus Aurelius, Amor Fati meant not only enduring the inevitable but also finding in it an opportunity for growth. Each challenge was viewed as a test of character, a training for the soul. His idea was simple. If the universe follows a logical order, then everything that happens, including misfortunes, has a reason. Our task is to see these events from a higher perspective and learn from them. On the other hand, Seneca, advisor to Emperor Nero and one of the most influential Stoics, applied Amor Fati in his personal life. In one of his letters to Lucilius, he writes that the wise person accepts everything that comes with a serene spirit, convinced that every event, even the most painful, is an opportunity to exercise virtue. Seneca lived in an era of conspiracies, constant threats, and eventual forced suicide, yet he maintained his conviction that everything happens for a reason and that we must embrace each experience with grace. Seneca's life reminds us that even in the darkest moments, Amor Fati can give us strength. His serenity in the face of death was a direct reflection of his acceptance of fate. We cannot control external events, but we can control our response. And for the Stoics, that response should always be one of love and gratitude toward what destiny brings. But how has Amor Fati evolved over the centuries? While its origins lie in Stoic philosophy, this concept has influenced many later thinkers. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, for example, adopted it as a central principle of his own worldview. Nietzsche spoke of Amor Fati not just as acceptance, but as the proactive attitude of wishing that every event, even the most difficult, happened exactly as it did. For Nietzsche, it is not enough to resign oneself to fate. One must intensely desire it. Acceptance of fate, for him, is a form of empowerment and a deep connection with life in its entirety. This approach invites us not only to endure the unexpected, but to wish for it as a fundamental part of our existence. From the days of the Stoics to Nietzsche's reflections, Amor Fati has been a powerful tool for those seeking not only to survive adversity but to find deep meaning in it. This philosophical attitude has not lost its relevance. Throughout the centuries, it remains a reminder that unconditional acceptance of fate is the key to living with inner peace and purpose, even in the most difficult times. Today, the concept of Amor Fati is as relevant as it was in the era of the Stoics. We live in a world full of uncertainty, where change is constant and the unexpected can challenge us at any moment. From global crises to personal situations, difficulties are always present. But, like the ancient Stoic philosophers, we can apply Amor Fati as a powerful tool to thrive, not just by surviving, but by finding meaning in every challenge. Let's take the case of athletes. Imagine an elite athlete training for years for a competition, only to suffer a serious injury just before their big moment. Instead of giving up or resisting reality, those who practice Amor Fati accept the situation as part of their journey. This doesn't mean they won't seek to recover, but they see the injury as an opportunity to grow, both mentally and physically. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, is an example of someone who turned an apparent failure into motivation. Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team, but instead of seeing it as an ending, he embraced that setback and used it as fuel for his career. This mindset reflects Amor Fati. He not only accepted his fate at that moment but loved it, transforming it into the foundation of his success. Amor Fati can also be applied in the world of business and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs face constant failures and unexpected challenges, but those who adopt a Stoic mindset understand that every setback is an opportunity to learn and evolve. Take Steve Jobs, who was fired from the very company he founded, Apple. Years later, Jobs stated that being fired was one of the best things that ever happened to him. It pushed him to explore new ideas and eventually return to Apple with more experience and a clearer vision. Jobs, like many other leaders and visionaries, unknowingly applied the principle of Amor Fati. He accepted his situation, did not resist it, and used the unexpected as a springboard to his future success. This kind of attitude not only redefines adversity but turns it into an ally on the path to personal and professional growth. But it's not just leaders and athletes who can benefit from Amor Fati. Anyone can apply this principle in daily life. Consider those facing serious illnesses or the loss of a loved one. Amor Fati does not mean ignoring pain or difficulties, but learning to accept them as part of life, as opportunities to find meaning amid chaos. A clear example is Nick Vujicic, a motivational speaker born without limbs. Instead of letting his condition defeat him, Nick adopted a Stoic mindset, accepting his fate with gratitude. Today, he travels the world inspiring millions of people, demonstrating that even what seems like an insurmountable obstacle can become a source of strength and motivation. Amor Fati allowed him to transform his destiny into a life mission. Nick Vujicic not only accepted the unexpected, he embraced it. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" he found a way to love what he had to live through, using it to inspire others to do the same. This is the essence of Amor Fati, to see every situation as an opportunity for growth, regardless of how difficult it may seem. In our everyday lives, Amor Fati can be applied in many ways. From accepting minor frustrations like traffic or delays at work to facing major challenges like unemployment or broken relationships. Instead of resisting what happens, Amor Fati teaches us to find peace by accepting that everything is part of the life process. By doing so, we can avoid unnecessary stress and redirect our energy toward what we can control, our attitude, and our actions. Practicing Amor Fati in modern life is not easy, but over time, this mindset can transform us. It allows us to see each challenge not as a tragedy but as an inevitable and necessary part of our journey. It helps us live with less resistance and more acceptance, finding in the unexpected not only lessons but also peace. Whether in business, sports, or everyday life, Amor Fati invites us to change our perspective. It challenges us to love our destiny with all its surprises and to find in every setback an opportunity to evolve. By doing so, we can learn to thrive in any circumstance, embracing the unexpected as an essential step in our personal growth. Now that we understand what Amor Fati is and how it has been applied by historical and contemporary figures, the question is, how can we incorporate this principle into our daily lives? Stoicism is not just a theoretical philosophy. It is a daily practice that we can integrate through mental and physical exercises. Below, I will share some techniques to help train your mind in the radical acceptance of the unexpected and the detachment from outcomes. One of the most powerful exercises that Stoics regularly practiced is negative visualization. This exercise involves imagining, in a controlled manner, that things do not go as we expect or even that the worst possible outcome occurs. The idea is to prepare our minds to face the unexpected without falling into anguish. To perform this exercise, find a quiet place, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. Think of an aspect of your life where you fear things may not go as planned. Now, imagine that the most negative outcome happens: losing a job, a project failing, or a personal conflict. How would you feel? Instead of resisting that feeling, accept it. Visualize how you can find serenity and growth in that situation, remembering that while we do not control external events, we do control our response to them. This exercise will help you detach from outcomes and face the future with greater calmness. If you have already visualized the worst and accepted that possibility, the unexpected will not catch you off guard. You will be mentally prepared for whatever comes, and when things turn out better than expected, you will feel grateful. Another fundamental exercise is Stoic journaling, a daily practice of written reflection. Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, dedicated time each day to write about their thoughts, fears, and how they faced the challenges of the day. This not only allowed them to clarify their emotions but also reinforced the practice of Amor Fati. At the end of each day, sit down with your journal and reflect on what occurred, both the good and the bad. Ask yourself questions like, what unexpected event did I face today? How did I accept it? Can I love what happened, even if it wasn't what I expected? This process of written reflection will help you review your reactions and deepen your daily practice of Amor Fati. Write about how you can better accept the events of the following day. This act of introspection will not only allow you to process what happens to you more effectively, but will also help you identify patterns in your thinking, where you may be resisting more than necessary. Memento mori, or the reflection on death, is a powerful technique used by the Stoics to remind us that our lives are limited and that we must learn to accept their ephemeral nature. It is not about obsessing over death, but maintaining the awareness that time is finite and that each day is an opportunity to embrace what life offers us. Each day, take a few minutes to remind yourself that life is temporary. By recognizing the inevitability of death, we can more deeply appreciate the moments we have, accept the unexpected more easily, and stop worrying about minor frustrations. Amor Fati is nourished by this understanding. Loving fate includes loving the uncertainty of when the end will come. Stoicism teaches us to focus only on what we can control. A simple but powerful exercise is to ask yourself whenever you face a difficult situation, what can I control here? If the outcome does not depend on you, learn to detach from it. This can be applied in work, relationships, or your personal goals. Instead of obsessing over the success or failure of a project, concentrate your energy on the actions you can take right now. The key to Amor Fati is accepting that results are not always in your hands. This exercise of detachment from outcomes will help you focus on what you can control, reducing stress and increasing your inner peace. Amor Fati is a daily practice. It's not just about accepting the unexpected. It's about training your mind to love every part of the journey, including the challenges. With exercises like negative visualization, Stoic journaling, reflection on death, and detachment from outcomes, you can begin to cultivate a Stoic mindset that allows you to live with more serenity and purpose. Amor Fati is not just a philosophical concept. It has been a source of strength for people throughout history. Through adversity, many figures have found in the acceptance of fate a path to greatness. Next, we will explore some inspiring stories, both ancient and modern, that demonstrate the power of embracing the unexpected and loving one's destiny. Let's start with Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most famous Stoic and author of the Meditations. As Emperor of Rome, his life was not easy. He ruled during times of war, plagues, and internal conflicts. However, rather than succumbing to the weight of his responsibilities, Marcus Aurelius practiced Amor Fati. In his writings, we can see how he faced each difficulty with calmness and acceptance, reminding himself that everything happening, no matter how painful or challenging, was part of a larger plan. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Love only what happens to you and what is woven into the fabric of your destiny, for what could be more fitting for you?" Amid the chaos and tragedies of his empire, the emperor found peace by accepting his fate and the circumstances he could not change. Epictetus, another great master of Stoicism, is a perfect example of the power of Amor Fati. Born a slave in imperial Rome, Epictetus did not let his status define his worth or his life. Despite living under the worst circumstances, he found freedom in accepting what he could not control. Epictetus taught that the only thing we can truly control is our reactions to what happens. Even as a slave, he asserted that his mind and his ability to accept his fate were more powerful than any physical chains. One of his most famous quotes is, "It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." With this philosophy, Epictetus transformed his adversity into an opportunity for growth, teaching others that regardless of external circumstances, one can always choose how to respond. Moving to the 20th century, we find the powerful story of Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who brought the concept of Amor Fati to one of the most extreme situations in history. During his time in concentration camps, Frankl lost his family and endured inhumane conditions. Yet through all this, he found a source of strength in accepting his suffering. In his book Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl wrote that even in the darkest moments, humans can find meaning in suffering. He taught that if we cannot change our circumstances, we must change our attitude toward them. Frankl took a Stoic approach by accepting what he could not control and finding meaning amidst adversity. As he stated, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Helen Keller, one of the most inspiring figures of the 20th century, also demonstrates the power of accepting the unexpected. Born deaf and blind, Keller could have been a victim of her fate, but instead, she embraced her challenges and transformed them into an opportunity to leave a mark on the world. With the help of her teacher and Sullivan, Keller learned to communicate and later became an influential speaker and activist. She is a modern example of someone who lived the Amor Fati, loving her fate as it was, and using it to inspire others to overcome their own difficulties. She said, "Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all." Keller not only accepted her destiny, she embraced it with courage. An ancient Stoic fable tells the story of a slave who accidentally broke a valuable vase in his master's house. Instead of getting angry or distressed, he simply looked at the fragments and said, "What was broken was meant to break." This tale perfectly encapsulates the spirit of Amor Fati. What is destined to happen will happen, and resisting it will only bring us more suffering. By learning to accept what we cannot change, like the broken vase, we can find serenity in any situation, no matter how challenging it may seem. These stories, both real and mythical, remind us that accepting the unexpected and loving our fate is not just a way to survive adversity, but to transcend it. Amor Fati offers us a way to live with less resistance, finding meaning even in the darkest moments. As all these examples teach us, embracing our destiny frees us from unnecessary suffering and gives us an inner strength that no circumstance can undermine. Throughout this video, we have explored the profound power of Amor Fati, the idea of accepting and loving everything life presents to us, both the good and the bad. We have seen how philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, as well as modern figures like Viktor Frankl and Helen Keller, found strength in this principle. Amor Fati is not merely resignation. It is an active philosophy that allows us to face adversity with calm, find meaning in suffering, and live in harmony with our destiny. Now it's your turn to adopt Amor Fati in your daily life. Take a moment to reflect. What events, situations, or challenges are you facing today that are causing you distress? What is happening that is beyond your control, and to which you might be resisting? What if, instead of fighting against these events, you learn to love them, to see them as essential parts of your growth and personal development? Every day is filled with unexpected moments, some difficult and others rewarding. But all of them are part of the fabric of our existence. By embracing Amor Fati, we not only accept what happens, we love it because we understand that everything that happens to us happens for a reason. And although it may not always be obvious at the moment, every experience, every challenge, has the potential to make us stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Today, I invite you to begin your practice of Amor Fati. Tonight, take a few minutes to write in a journal or reflect on the events of your day. Ask yourself, what situations did I face that were difficult? How can I learn to accept and love these moments rather than resist them? Tomorrow, when you wake up, remind yourself, whatever happens today, I will accept and love it, because it is all part of my journey. Make this a daily practice. Through constant reflection, you will start to notice a shift in your perspective. Life may not become easier, but your ability to face it with serenity and strength will increase. Adopting Amor Fati doesn't mean we shouldn't strive to improve our circumstances. Rather, it means understanding that, ultimately, not everything is within our control. What we can control is our attitude toward events, and therein lies our true power. Remember, the power of Amor Fati lies in learning to love everything life presents to you, even the unexpected. Because only by loving our destiny, just as it is, can we find true inner peace. Thank you for joining me on this philosophical journey. If this video has inspired you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your reflections in the comments. Together, let's continue exploring how to apply these ancient teachings to our modern lives. And remember, love your fate, because it is the only one you have.